Hello, greetings from Tegama. I hope you're able to enjoy a good cup of coffee as well while you listen to the devotional, which I hope is a blessing to you today. But we are in our 12th day of the quarantine here, and the death toll of the coronavirus continues to shoot up. I just checked a little bit ago, and globally there are 22,000 people who have died. In Spain, there are close to 4,000. In the Basque Country, where we are, the number was at 155, and 20 of those were in our tiny little province of Gipuzkoa. And it's getting closer to home as friends and church people report sickness in co-workers and neighbors. And I just heard that a friend of mine has the virus as well. So our eyes continue fixed on the Lord, and we know that He has everything under control. Okay, well, today I was wondering, the list of stories in the Bible that sort of work into this focus of quarantine are rapidly dwindling, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do today. And then early this morning, the Lord gave me one, and I thought, why hadn't I thought of that earlier? This is awesome, and it is an incredible story. It's the story of Nebuchadnezzar. So, I would like to read the words of Nebuchadnezzar, just in a couple of verses now and then later as well. And many of you know his story, but I'm going to just cover some of the highlights, and hopefully it'll be good. Okay? Verse 2 of Daniel chapter 4. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me. How great, let me see what verses, how great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. This guy's excited. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. These are big words. And they're even bigger when you think of who's saying them. Nebuchadnezzar. Well, let me go over some of the details of his life. First of all, the critics go wild over the book of Daniel. They try and strip it of anything supernatural. But their arguments are so weak and so lame and so obviously colored by their antagonism towards the very idea of a sovereign God. But these accounts in Daniel are totally credible. Totally credible. And I have no trouble at all believing in them, although they are fantastic in many senses. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar. He was the second king of Babylon. Reigned from 604 BC to 561 BC. He besieged Jerusalem twice. First time was in 579 BC, and then the second and last time when he destroyed it was in 587/586 BC. He also conquered Syria and Phoenicia, Egypt. he just went, conquering and destroying everybody in his path, primarily to the west of his land. But he was not only a conqueror like Uzziah, who we saw yesterday. Was not only a conqueror, he was also a builder, and apparently had a lot of imagination. He built tons of temples and shrines to the many gods all over the place, as he is, I guess, closer in on Babylon, but stretching out towards the countries that he had conquered. He had palaces. He built humongous walls and canals for water. And anyway, he was again a very broad-minded king or emperor, conqueror, whatever you want to call them, all of the above, right? And so, anyway, it was very, very prolific in all of his projects. But his quarantine story in chapter 4, what happened to him in chapter 4 of Daniel is amazing. And I had not even thought of it until early this morning, but it's remarkable. So chapter 4 tells the story. The entire chapter of 4 of Daniel is, curiously enough, not written by Daniel, as in maybe Daniel penned it, but I mean it's not Daniel speaking. it's Nebuchadnezzar, this ungodly emperor who was for many years was a killer and a destroyer of peoples. He writes this chapter. And what he tells in the chapter is that he was flourishing, everything was going great, his conquests were going, and he was building all of these beautiful places, and he had a dream. But the dream bothered him, obviously. You're going to have to read it yourself, but the dream bothered him, but mostly because none of his advisors could give him any interpretation. I mean, they were dumbfounded. What in the world does this dream mean? And in this dream, he dreamed of this huge and healthy tree that was cut down by a mysterious heavenly watcher, whatever that is. And then it turns out that the tree represents a man, a human being, who is turned into a beast, practically is turned into an animal. And it happens for 7 times, whatever that is. Now, the 2 main opinions on the times is that it's either years or months. And I'm not quite sure which I lean to most. I've always thought years, but I don't know. Anyway, 7 times, however much that was. Okay, so in his dream, the purpose for the dream is given. The reason is given. Why he's getting this dream. This is really, you got to really jump into this dream, you know. So the reason is given for the dream, but not the interpretation. And the reason for the dream is that the Most High God rules over the affairs of man. That's the purpose of the dream, to prove, or for the Most High God to show that he's the one who rules the nations and the universe. So, Daniel interprets the dream, and it gives him some advice afterwards, as you might remember. But he tells him that he is the tree. Nebuchadnezzar is the tree. And because of his pride, something very odd is going to happen. He's going to start eating grass like an ox. And we find out that he's going to grow feather kind of things and claws like a bird. This is something really, really odd. But that's going to happen to him. And then, as I remember, Daniel says, you know, be careful. Be good. Be righteous. You don't want this to happen to you. Well, 12 months go by. Nothing happens, I guess. And Nebuchadnezzar thinks, he forgets about the dream, I guess. And because he's the one writing the story, he's the one telling us. 12 months later, here I was walking along my royal palace in Babylon and thinking, wow, look what I have done. Look what I have made. He's gloating in his achievements. And a voice comes, and it happens exactly like Daniel said. And he goes into pretty much the most remarkable quarantine in all of history. And that's what it is. He begins to act and eat like an animal. His mind goes from him, and they set him aside. The kingdom obviously continues to go on with help of others, his advisors and whatnot. But He isn't doing any of the governing, not for 7 times, whatever that is. So that's the story of Nebuchadnezzar. It just sort of reduced down to some of its most important points. So some lessons to take away from it, from this quarantine story of Nebuchadnezzar. First of all, we can see that God can interrupt history at any time he wants and do whatever he wants when he interrupts it. He can. He can interrupt everybody's schedule. We even see that kind of thing happening every once in a while when with even the news media has no option but to jump on some things that happen in a global sense. And what we're living right now is definitely an example, but even other natural phenomena. Anyway, he can interrupt history whenever he wants. And those of us who know the Bible and know the Lord know that there are some major interruptions coming down the road. Another lesson, there is nobody too far gone for God's grace to save. Nobody. In one blink of a brain, God can totally reverse a lifetime of godless thinking. That's the power of God inside the mind of an unbeliever. Nebuchadnezzar is quite the example. And then finally, don't stop praying for those you know need Jesus, no matter how hard they appear to be. I can't help but think Daniel was a man of prayer. We know that because his prayers are throughout the book. He was praying for Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, he had the time frame and everything, but he was still praying for Nebuchadnezzar to come out of the experience learning. And wow, did he ever. And so I want to end letting Nebuchadnezzar do the talking. Okay, and I want to read the last verses of the chapter, starting from 34. Just relax and listen. These are tremendous words. And at the end of the days, that's that time, the 7 times, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High. That's a good response. And I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. He said that earlier. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time, my reason returned unto me. We are so vulnerable and so dependent on God for even the ability to think, to watch the video, me to read the word, you to understand it. We owe everything to God giving us our reason. And for the glory of my kingdom, mine honor and brightness returned unto me. And my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. And this is how he ends his chapter. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are true, and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride, he is able to abase. Wow! What a message! What a sermon! And I cannot help but believe those are the words of a true believer, changed by the grace of God. That's tremendous. Now, closing thought. The hero of the story is not Nebuchadnezzar. the hero of the story is God. And when our story is done, when this quarantine is finished, when everything works itself out, God will still be the hero and the focus of everything that happens. Let's not forget that. And let's continue to pray for those who need to know the God that we know. God bless you. Have a great day.